So, can you just explain your history with drug use? Would you say that you were a regular user or was it a one off situation?
Now at 20, I'm not taking anything. I don't take any drugs at all. But when I was 16, I was surrounded by a lot of people that were taking drugs. It made me kind of like, I was very an anxious person at the time. So I was aware of the people who took a tablet and died on the spot. But I was also aware that all my friends were taking 3-4 tablets and doing it every single day for a week straight. So I was like, what is the situation? So a lot of the time anxiety would stop me from ever being a regular user. But as I grew older, from like 14 to 15, I kind of realised that weed wasn't an issue physically. You didn't read about someone smoking a joint and then dying. You read them just having a good time. So I also smoked at the time, so I wasn't taking good care of myself, and I was like smoking cigarettes constantly. So I was like, what is the difference? In my 15-year-old brain, I was like, there is no difference. Like, it's just gonna make me feel a different kind of way. So I'd say, like, as I grew up, I kind of became a regular smoker of weed, but not of actual proper drugs, if that makes sense.
Did you have any pre-existing mental health conditions prior to your drug use? You said that you had a bit of anxiety. So can you just explain the extent then of your issues?
I wasn't necessarily like depressed. I think I was like teenager sad, which sounds awful, but that was just like the level I was at. But all my friends around me were like clinically depressed, which was obviously a fun group. But I think that kind of made me look into my own mental health a lot more than I needed to. I was definitely an anxious person anyway, and I still am. Like, I've always been anxious and I've always had anxiety, but I definitely was hyper aware of what my mental state was, probably to an unhealthy point when I definitely didn't need to be. So at the time, just anxiety, I'd say, to be honest.
Did you experience a particular turning point with your mental health where drug use was involved?
I had this group of friends who basically we all smoked weed together. We used to just hang out on the weekends, have a good time, like chill in a park and just smoke some weed. Proper classic teenager stuff. And they were all like pretty chill people. We were all like quite like normal, whatever. And we all had our own little things. But everyone was aware that I was quite an anxious person. And, you know, it was just a common knowledge at that point because I'd have like the odd panic attack. Yeah, so we were smoking weed regularly, hanging out. And then I remember one day I had two separate groups of friends. A group of friends that didn't touch anything and then these people I'd smoked weed with. I was 15 at the time and I'd left my other group of friends to go and smoke weed with these other friends. And we met at the usual place, like we had like a little train station we'd meet at and we'd go and walk and have like a nice walk through the woods, smoke some weed and go and hang out somewhere else. And weed always affected me in a way that I think was kind of just a lot more relaxed than other people. I never found myself laughing constantly, going through loads of food. Like I was just having a nice time, if that makes sense. I think it was a lot more of a social thing for me rather than like I need a joint to chill. So we're hanging out in these woods, we're just smoking some weed and I'm like, oh, so you know, what have you guys done today? And they're like, oh, we just gone and smoked another bag of weed. So I was like, oh right, okay. How did you get so much? Like we're all skint 15-year-olds, like proper putting pennies together. Like how did you buy £40 worth of weed? And they're like, oh no, we got a bag free. And I was like, okay. And bearing in mind, I'm like, at this point I'm smoking this weed. I'm like, where was that weed from then? Where was this free weed from? And they were like, oh, the dealer said that he didn't want to sell that one because it wasn't that good. And I was like, so what's this joint that I'm currently smoking made of then? And they were like, the free bag. And I was just like, okay, great. So my little brain then's immediately like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But I didn't want to be like over the top dramatic because just didn't want to come off like I was like 15. I didn't want to look like weak. I wanted to be like, yeah, this has probably got so much cool stuff in it, you know, trying to be hardcore or whatever. And really I was panicking so bad. So I stopped smoking it. I was like, yeah, I don't want that. But I'd had like half at this point. And I was like, right, okay, let's just go and chill at my friend's house. Let's hang out. And that's when like my overthinking like really, really kicked in. I was like, okay, I feel like something's going to happen, which 100% did not help the situation. So we're walking up the woods like the normal way we go. And I remember speaking to my friend. And at this point, they hadn't really pointed out like I'd been weird or anything. And I remember saying to my friends, I was like, oh, can you hear cars from the top of the road up at the hill? And she was like, yeah. And I remember laughing, like uncontrollable, like maniacal laughter at the fact I could hear cars. But in my head, I was like kind of sober thinking, what on earth? Like, why am I laughing like that? Like, what's going on? We were walking up the hill and then we get to the train track and I just feel like my legs like dissolve underneath me. And I remember falling and my friends being like, what on earth are you doing? So I pick me up and I sit at the side of the train station. I just remember passing out, like properly passing out. I woke up, no one was there. And I was like, okay, this is happening. Something's happened. Like, I don't know how long I've been here. At this point, I didn't realize anything was wrong. I was just like, something's happened. I need to figure out what's going on. So I ring my friend Beth from this separate friend group who's not got anything to do with these other people. Because I was like, they're clearly not here. So clearly they're not going to help me. I need to go and get some proper help from some proper friends here. So she's like, right, I'm coming to get you. We're going to come pick you up. Don't worry about it. Stay where you are. So I'm like, okay, right, good. Got responsible, good friends who are going to come and get me. And this bit's really foggy for me, but she said that it was a 20-minute walk to my other friend's house. It took an hour because I couldn't understand where I was. And I have such a I don't remember this properly at all, but I do remember one part where she was holding me up and I was like on a wall, and she just said that I kept saying like, I don't know who I am and I don't know where I am. And when she told me that like another day, I was like, oh my God, like I must have been, God knows what was going on. So she's ringing my other friends constantly like, what the hell have you given her? Like, what is going on? She doesn't take anything like properly. What have you given her? And they were just like, oh, we don't know, we're all fine, we smoke the same weed, like we don't know. And I remember coming round slowly at my friend's house and just having this sense of like, I'm not there anymore. And I don't know how to put it, and it sounds now like my friends will laugh, and I think I'm at a point where I can understand why they're laughing. I'll never join in, but like I was convinced that I was in a coma essentially, and it's taken me it was 4 years ago, and it's taken me a good 4 years to understand 100% what was going on. My brain thought I was in a coma, and it also thought that I wasn't there, and it was almost as though I was looking at myself in third person. So it was like my brain was like 2 meters up and behind me, watching what was going on. I would speak and my brain would almost say to me, why are you speaking? No one can hear you, no one can understand you. And no one would reply to me, but in fact they were speaking to me. My brain just couldn't acknowledge that people were responding because it didn't believe it was speaking. It's the most ridiculous thing to happen. Like, I still don't 100% understand it, but like that's what was going on. I go home and my mum's like, what on earth has been delivered to my house? So she's just like, just go to bed, Niamh, go away, because she knew I was being stupid or whatever. And I went to go to bed. I couldn't sleep because my brain was like, you can't sleep, you're in a coma. So I was like, okay, this is great, you know, whatever. And I'm in bed and I remember just lying awake all night. And the next day, and I completely forgot because of this, was my 60th birthday. My mum came and she's like, happy birthday. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I keep flitting between this like third person, I don't know who I am, and also like going back into myself being like, okay, this is going on. And it was so horrible. It was so anxiety inducing. Like I didn't know how to react. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, have I actually gone insane? Like, have I gone insane? Is this it? Am I like detached from reality now? And that went on solidly for 2 weeks. Yeah, I remember my mum, eventually I had to be like, right, mum, I smoke weed, this happened, what do I do? I can't function, I don't think I'm real. And my mum's like, okay, well, just go to a doctor, because I'm not qualified to do that. But she was like, if I find out, you know, she did the usual mum stuff. And yeah, I guess that was like the turning point. That bit was where that long evaluation of it all is where like I was like, okay, yeah, I'm got something wrong with me and I don't know what it is.
That experience then, would you say it's affected you long term then in terms of your mental health?
I laugh because I can't not laugh because I just find it so ridiculous that this is my like how my brain has gone. But yeah, I did go to a doctor in the end, and I was like, look, I smoked some weed, I don't know what's going on, I can't explain it very well. But she was like, okay, it sounds like you're disassociating. And obviously I was like, what is that? And essentially what she explained it as is that your brain experiences a trauma or some kind of experience that makes it detach from itself to take away from the stress of the situation. And she kind of explained it as what you probably had was such a bad anxiety attack that it triggered some kind of dissociative episode that hasn't gone away because you're still not calm. Because when I disassociate, it gives me panic attacks. It's a cycle that I can't get out of, and it takes a lot for me to get out of it. So for the first year, I was having this constantly, like every day I'd wake up and I'd be like, right, how do I stay in my mind today? And I'd have to really fight to keep in my head. And as I've gone on and as I've grown up, I've kind of learned to, instead of it being a constant issue, I've now just got small triggers. 4 years on now, if I laugh a lot, it can sometimes bring it on. So I have to kind of immediately stop and be like, right, okay, you're in your head, it's fine. The way I kind of describe it is it's like there's balloons in my head that are floating away. At some point, they'll float a lot faster than usual and I have to quickly grab them and pull them back in, or else that's it, I'm gone, and I need hours to get back to where I usually am. When I first started uni, it was a very anxiety-inducing time, and it was awful. It was so hard for me to get like back into my mind often enough to be able to come in. And I remember being very, very like worried that I'd go to a doctor and they'd want to admit me, or like something, like I was scared to go and get help because I didn't want people to be like, okay, you're actually insane. You need to be in hospital. Because I was like, I'm not insane. Like I know I'm fine, but I can't get a handle on this. And at the time, my girlfriend smoked a lot of weed, and she knew the situation. She stayed well away from me, but you know, she had a different experience, so I was respectful of that. Something in my mind was like, you should have some weed brownies, which I don't know why I did that, but I did. Yeah, it came back 10 times worse, and I was just like, right, okay, no more. You cannot. you cannot touch anything ever again that will alter your state of mind. Like, it's just, you can't do it because you can't handle it. Ever since then, I think I've taken really good care of myself to make sure that I'm in a situation where I know the people around me understand my situation. My friends used to make jokes like, oh, wake up, Niamh. Not just to me, but everyone. And I had to be like, when you do that, it literally means wake up in my mind, and I then freak out and think I have to, and it's too much for me. So the people around me know how to handle it. But it does bother me because I'm like, I want to be able to go out and have fun, and I don't want to go out and take a load of drugs, but I do want to know that I'll be okay if something was to happen. Like, if I got spiked, I don't know what my reaction would be aside from like the normal person. So it is a constant worry there for me, but I feel like 20-year-old me has got a better handle on it than 16-year-old me did, because at the time it was, not great. But I've always said to my girlfriend, who's like always tried to help me through it, that I think it'll always be there, but be a lot not as strong and not as like serious as it used to be. I don't think I'm in a coma anymore. I can recognise when I feel like I'm going to go into an episode, and I can understand when I'm in one as well. Like, there's a much stronger part of me now that's like, you're okay, you're fine, like, don't worry, like, you're not gonna die, like, everything's okay. You just need to bring yourself back down to reality. And it's just sad. Like, half a joint, like 4 years later, and I'm still, but yeah, I've got a good grip, so it's fine.
Have you had any other experiences then with drugs after that experience, in more recent years, even as you've become a student?
First year, I did take some weed brownies. I don't know why I did it. I think I did it because I can drink and I won't disassociate, I'll be fine. When I'm hungover or if I'm overly tired, I can do, so sometimes I have to prepare myself for that, but I'll just stay in bed and keep myself chill and everything's fine. But I think a small part of me was like, why can't I join in? Like, I want to join in. I want to have fun. Like, everyone else is doing this stuff. Like, I want to do it. And I don't understand why, but I just was that way for like a small while. So I was like, you know what? If I have brownies in my own home and it's controlled and it's fine, then why not? And I don't think I've ever been so wrong in my life. Like, I was so wrong. Like, yeah. And it got triggered by, I started getting like laughing so much after eating these brownies. My girlfriend looked at me and she was like, stop, because this is not, I can tell you're already kind of like falling into this. And when she said stop like that, it kind of made something snap inside my head that was like, what? And I think it kind of triggered it almost, because bless her, she was only trying to help me, but because she spoke to me so abruptly, it kind of jointed my brain almost, and I was like, wait, what was that? And before I knew it, I was out of it. And that was the most sincere episode like I've had in years. And I remember being on my bed and my brain was like, you're not in a coma anymore, you're in hell. And it sounds stupid, it sounds hilarious, like it sounds like something just a high person would say, but I was so utterly convinced that I was dead and that I needed to do something about that. But my girlfriend was like looking at me like, I don't know how to help, this is too far for me. And we were like, do I go to hospital? Do I just like wait it out? And eventually I was just like, I'm just gonna lie here and hope for the best. And like, I don't think I spoke for like 12 hours because I couldn't understand my girlfriend could hear me and see me and interact with me, so she just kind of made sure I was fine. And yeah, after that I was like, that was the stupidest thing I've ever done, and I don't know why I thought I could handle it, but after that I was like, yeah, it's time to look after yourself, it's time to understand that your anxiety is a massive trigger for it, and once you don't want to deal with it, you need to kind of get a grip. So that wasn't my shining point, but it was still a learning point for me, because I think it definitely made me take it a lot more seriously than I was doing at the time.
It was interesting you said that most people would probably think, oh, you're just doing this because you're high and whatever. I don't think many people actually realise that it can affect your mental health in that way. Most people just pass it off as it being a calm down or whatever. They don't actually think it can cause this long-term effect. So when it did, and when you realised it was long-term, did you actually seek professional help from mental health experts?
When I spoke to the doctor when it first ever happened when I was 16, she just said it'll go away, and I was like, okay. And I've always had a lot of anxiety surrounding doctors, so I've always been very I don't trust them. It sounds ridiculous, but I just don't trust them. I can't like relax around them, and it took a lot for me to go in the first place. When it didn't go away, I knew she was wrong. Like, I knew she was wrong. Like, I knew it wasn't going to go away. This is never going to go away. I was convinced I was going to be like this forever, and that I was going to be this detached from reality forever. After like a year, I kind of just left it, and I feel like I'm the queen of leaving things just to manifest forever, and then eventually I'm like, okay, I need to get help. I've tried to get help for it in the past, like I've gone to doctors, and I've just been met with confusion. Like, I think because it's such an odd thing to describe, and it's so hard to truly understand unless you've experienced it in the way that I have, I don't think there's much people can do. There are so many different types of it. There's ones where you don't even recognise your own face, and I feel quite lucky sometimes that I've got what I have in instead of what I could have had, which is 10 times worse. When I went to a doctor for the second time, I think I'd just turned 18, I'd just started uni, and my friends were like, you're not well, like you really need to go and get this checked because you are doing this constantly now and we don't know how to help. It's really hard to explain. It sounds so sinister, but I can take it lightly because I know it's not true. I believed a lot that I was in a coma, and I believed a lot that I wasn't real. So a lot of the time my brain would be like, you need to kill yourself to get out of that, because if you kill yourself then you'll go to your normal self. And like, I knew in the deepest part of my brain, like obviously that's not true. Like I knew that wasn't the case, but I also knew that like pain was a way for me to feel grounded into my body. So a lot of the time I'd find myself like subconsciously scratching my skin off because it helped me feel like I was a person. So when I went to the doctors, I explained all that I've explained here. I told them, I feel detached from reality. I can't bring myself back down. I've got anxiety. I don't know what to do. And I kind of mentioned, I was like, and my brain wants me to kill myself. And before you know it, I'm being told that I'm a risk to myself, that I'm, I'm self-harming, and I need to be admitted into hospital because I'm a danger, and all these kinds of different things just suddenly got chucked on me. And I was like, no, that's not the case. Like, I don't want to die. I'm very happy. Like, this is a subconscious thing that I'm doing. I'm not self-harming. Like, and I think because I got that reaction from doctors, it stopped me now from ever going back to tell them about it, because I, for about a solid 2 weeks, was like, I'm going to get admitted into hospital. And I felt insane enough already. So when a doctor's like, we want to admit you, I'm like, oh my God, like I couldn't handle the thought process of being, do you know what I mean? So I just stopped going. And I was speaking to a friend last night about this interview, and I was saying how I can focus on it so well now that I feel like I can control it really well. And even he was like, no, go and see a doctor. Like, you don't want to deal with this forever. Like, go and see a doctor. And I was like, no, I just feel like this kind of thing is something that for me personally, I need to handle on my own. And I don't want to sound like I'm like too special a case for mental health services, but the way they are at the moment, being so hard to reach, I feel like this is such a specific case of what I have that there isn't enough time and resources available for them to properly help me without it causing me more damage, if that makes sense. Because bringing all that kind of stuff up brings it back, and I'm not in a place where I feel like there's enough support around me to do that. So I just kind of float along, leave it to myself. Like, I handle it very well. And I know that if there's ever a point where I need to, I guess I will, but I try and avoid it for now.
I suppose, and it's come up time and time again through my own research, it almost seems like I feel like there needs to be a reformation of mental health services and kind of doctor services in general among the NHS, because I feel like drug use, especially among young people, is becoming such an epidemic now. Like, it's so common, it's almost uncommon to hear of someone who hasn't really experienced any kind of drug use. Do you feel that if the doctor you first seen when you were 16 had been more educated and more informed in how to deal with these specific experiences, similar to what you had, that you would be in a better position now?
I feel like if the doctor I saw when I was 16, I don't want to say she rushed me, but she wasn't understanding it, and I think she just kind of thought, okay, she's probably even still high. She may even still be under the influence of whatever it was. But I think had they taken me on and had they taken me seriously, it wouldn't have taken me 4 years to get to the point where I can handle it myself. Like, I have self-taught myself everything that I need to know about what I deal with. I've never received an official diagnosis. I've been told that it could be this, it could be that, and it sounds ridiculous to diagnose yourself, and I don't go around telling people that this is what I have, but it is the closest thing that I've ever found from speaking to people online, reading about things, and even speaking to just like my friends and what they know, and from other people they know. And it makes me sad really that it's to the point where I have to do it myself for 4 years. Like, at such a formative age, at such a stressful time of life, like, I don't feel like I shouldn't have had to do that. But at the same time, I think it's a shame, because you hear a lot about, okay, so a girl took a tablet and she died on a night out, and she was 18, middle class family, what a tragedy. And I knew about all those things, and I knew that that's how drugs can affect people. And even my mum, who I don't know her past, but even she knew all about that. Do you know what I mean? Everyone knows about those kinds of instances. I don't think people understand truly the mental health impacts of what drugs can have on your mental health. Like, I don't think that people do, because it's like when me and my friends went to Amsterdam, and they're all smoking weed, and it's ridiculous that I even went, isn't it, really? But, like, they don't understand why I can't go into these bars. And when people say, oh, I want it legalised here, I feel like I'm the only 20-year-old, like, person in the country who's like, I don't know if I want it legalised because it affected me in such a horrible way, and I don't know exactly why it did. And it might have been something in the weed. It might have just been my reaction that time. Like, I don't know. But the fact that I don't know is enough for me to understand that it shouldn't, that people need to know more, because I just think it's like, come down. It's like I've seen friends go through depressive episodes because they've taken something and the next day they want to die. This is crazy because you know that you need to stay hydrated, but you don't know that you're going to be suicidal the next day. Like, that's not normal. And I think it's sad that people have to go through something in a mental health kind of way with a reaction to drugs to understand it. Like, how it should just be from the start.
Where are you at now, and how do you see yourself improving, and how do you see that happening?
Now I've got a handle on everything. I can control it really well. I know where I'm at. I don't have episodes anymore. I wouldn't say prolonged ones. It could be a couple minutes, but I'm very good at just being like, nope, get yourself back in your head, Niamh, it's fine, everything's fine. I do worry about just finishing university, moving. Stressful points of life can really trigger it for me. But the fact that I can foresee that happening is good. And I everyone around me always says, like, you're 10 times better than you were when you were 16. Like, because I'm surrounded by the same people now, and they say, like, you can see that you're better. And I also feel a lot more confident in not having medical help and not having to worry about, okay, do I need to sort myself out for these certain kind of situations, like job interviews, these kind of things. Like, I don't worry anymore about going to work and if I'm going to disassociate. So I'd say I'm, like, pretty decent now. But there's still that little bit there that I'm like, done that, or I wish I'd known what was going on. But yeah, I'd say I'm pretty good now.